The sun was rising slowly over the wide desert, spreading soft orange light across the hills and dry grass. Caleb Turner guided his horse along a narrow trail that twisted between tall rocks. He had been riding since dawn, enjoying the quiet air and the sound of the horse's steady steps. Caleb worked as a frontier scout, a man who traveled between small settlements, ranches, and peaceful Apache groups. He was known for respecting everyone he met, no matter where they came from. People trusted him because he listened more than he talked, and always tried to help. That morning, he had planned to check a route that traders sometimes used. A heavy rainstorm had passed through the area 2 days earlier, and he wanted to see if the path was still safe. Storms in the desert could be dangerous. They could break trees, wash away parts of the trail, and create deep holes in the ground. Caleb had seen places that looked safe from far away, but could trap a horse or cause someone to fall, so he took his job seriously, knowing that his careful work often kept others from harm. As he rode through a rocky canyon, something unusual reached his ears. At first it was only a faint sound, as soft as the wind brushing through grass. He stopped his horse and listened more closely. There it was again, a small cry, thin and frightened, almost like a bird calling for help. But soon he realized it wasn't a bird at all. It sounded like a child. Caleb's heart tightened. Children alone in a canyon could be in great danger. There were cliffs, loose stones, and deep cracks in the ground left by the storm. He guided his horse forward slowly, letting the sound lead him. After a short distance, he found a narrow path that dropped down into a small, hidden hollow. The cries grew clearer now, 2 voices, high and scared. Caleb dismounted and tied his horse to a sturdy bush. Then he walked down the uneven path, placing his boots carefully so he wouldn't slip. When he reached the bottom, he saw a sight that made him stop. 2 little girls sat close together on a flat rock, holding each other tightly. They looked no older than 5 or 6, with long dark hair and bright brown eyes filled with worry. Their clothes were damp with dust from the storm, and their small hands trembled as they clung together. They were Apache children, he could tell by their clothing and the beaded bracelets on their wrists. But where were their parents? No adult would leave children so young alone in such a place. Caleb approached slowly, not wanting to frighten them more. He knelt a few steps away, keeping his hands open and gentle. "It's all right," he said softly. "My name is Caleb. I'm here to help. Are you hurt?" The girls looked at him with wide eyes. For a moment, they did not speak. Then the older one pointed toward the ridge above the canyon. Her voice shook as she spoke in a mix of Apache and simple English, enough for Caleb to understand. She explained that they had been walking with their mother when the storm grew worse. Rain poured down the rocks, and the ground shifted under their feet. Their mother had lifted them to safer ground, but the rushing water separated them before she could climb back up. When the rain stopped, the girls had tried to find a way out, but became lost. Caleb's chest tightened. They must have been wandering for hours. They were lucky to have found a spot where the storm water could not reach them. He smiled gently at them. "You're safe now. I'll help you find your mother." The younger girl sniffed, wiping her face with the back of her hand. Caleb felt a warm surge of determination. Nothing mattered more at that moment than returning these little ones to the person who loved them. He knew that any parent would be frantic with worry. "Come," he said softly. "Let's get you out of this hollow. I have a horse nearby. He's calm and friendly." The older girl nodded and helped her sister stand. They walked with Caleb up the rocky path. He kept his steps slow so they wouldn't stumble. When they reached the top, his horse snorted softly, as if sensing something important. Caleb placed one of his blankets over the horse's back to make a comfortable seat for the children. He helped them climb up, making sure they were steady before mounting behind them. The canyon opened wide as they rode toward a safer trail. Caleb talked to them in a gentle voice, telling them small stories about rabbits hiding in cactus shade or hawks flying high in the sky. His goal wasn't to entertain himself, it was to keep the children calm. Fear could make anyone tense, especially little ones who had been through something confusing and frightening. The older girl listened quietly, but the younger one slowly relaxed, her tiny hands gripping Caleb's shirt less tightly as time passed. The desert wind brushed against them, carrying the scent of warm earth and distant sage. Caleb stopped in a shaded area near a large rock formation. He gave the girls water from his canteen and shared a little food, soft dried fruit, and a small piece of bread. The girls accepted it gratefully. While they ate, Caleb checked the ground around them, looking for footprints or signs that their mother had passed by. The rain had washed away many marks, but he noticed a few fresh steps near the edge of the canyon, light footprints that could belong to a woman walking with urgency. That gave him hope. He knew the mother must be searching. No loving parent would give up looking, not when her children might still be close. Caleb felt a deep respect for the woman he had not yet met. She must have been strong and determined to survive the storm alone while worrying about her daughters. He guided the horse onward, following the faint signs he could find. The sun rose higher, warming the land, and the girls grew more comfortable. The younger one even pointed at a butterfly that fluttered near them, her face brightening with curiosity instead of fear. Caleb felt relief at the sight. Children should feel safe, not afraid. After several hours of careful riding, Caleb reached a small trading station known to both settlers and Apache groups. It was a peaceful place where people exchanged food, water, and simple goods. Caleb hoped someone had seen the girl's mother pass through. The moment he arrived, a few people stepped outside, surprised to see two children on his horse. Caleb explained the situation kindly, asking if anyone had met a young Apache woman searching for her daughters. The trader, an older man with thoughtful eyes, shook his head but promised to spread the word to anyone who came by. He also offered shade and water for the children, which Caleb gladly accepted. While the girls rested, Caleb stood near his horse, looking out across the open land. The mother was out there somewhere, searching with all the strength in her heart. He knew he would find her. He had made a silent promise the moment he heard those small cries echoing through the canyon. Caleb Turner was not a man who broke promises. He looked back at the girls, who were now seated on a blanket, drinking cool water and watching him with trust in their eyes. A warm feeling filled his chest. He felt a responsibility for them, one he accepted without hesitation. The sun was beginning to drift lower in the sky, and Caleb knew that meant the girl's mother would still be searching until nightfall. He tightened the straps on his saddle and prepared to ride again. He would not rest until he found her. Somewhere beyond the hills, a worried mother waited for the miracle of seeing her children again, and Caleb Turner intended to give her that miracle. The day after the strong desert storm, Nalin woke up with a heavy feeling in her chest. The sun was just rising, spreading soft golden light across the sand. But she felt no warmth from it. Her mind was full of worry. Her two young daughters had been walking with her when the storm had suddenly grown wild, pushing strong winds across the rocks and making the ground slippery. They had climbed to safer ground together, but the rushing water from the storm had confused them and separated them for a short moment. When the sky finally cleared, Nalin found herself alone. She had called their names again and again, but the desert answered only with the echo of her own voice. She searched every small hollow, climbed every ridge, and walked through every narrow pass she could find, but her children were nowhere to be seen. Now, as morning light touched the land, Nalin stood on a small rise and looked across the open space. She pressed her hand gently over her heart. Her daughters were strong and smart, but still very young. She knew they must be frightened. A mother always feels the pull of her children deep inside, as if an invisible string connects them. Nalin felt that string tugging her forward. She picked up her small bundle of supplies and began walking. Her steps were steady even though her heart raced with worry. She moved quietly, listening for any sound that might guide her. The desert was calm now, still recovering from the storm. Birds were returning to the sky, and small plants sparkled with leftover drops of water. But Nalin noticed some details that others might have missed. She saw faint marks in the soft dirt-light footprints, small as bird tracks. These were steps, made by little feet. Her hope grew like a small flame. The footprints were scattered because the storm had washed away most of the ground. Still, every little print told her she was on the right path. She followed them with patience, never rushing. She knew that rushing could cause mistakes, and she needed a clear mind. As she walked, She thought about her daughters. They loved making small flower circles from desert blooms, and they often chased butterflies through their village. Nalan's heart softened at these memories. They were gentle children with bright smiles, and she would cross the entire desert barefoot if it meant finding them again. By midday, the sun had grown warmer. Nalan stopped near a shade tree and drank a little water. She did not allow herself to rest long. Her children needed her. After a few breaths, she continued her search. She came across a group of travelers near a wide, smooth trail. They were stopping to let their horses drink water from a shallow pool formed by the storm. Nalan walked toward them carefully. She was polite, never raising her voice or showing fear. People often sensed her calm nature and treated her with respect in return. One of the travelers, an older woman with kind eyes, stepped forward. "Are you looking for someone?" she asked. Nalan nodded. "My daughters. They are young. I was separated from them when the storm came." The older woman's face softened. "I'm sorry. Storms can be confusing. But you are brave to keep searching." Nalan asked if they had seen children nearby. The travelers shook their heads, but one of them mentioned something hopeful. "We passed a man riding with 2 little girls," he said. "He was heading toward the trading station. They seemed safe." Nalan felt her heart lift. She asked what direction the man had gone, and the traveler pointed toward the west ridge. "Did he bother the children?" Nalan asked gently. Her mind needed to be sure. "No," the traveler answered. "He held them with great care. The girls looked tired but not harmed. They seemed to trust him." Nalan thanked the group with deep gratitude. She knew many people passed through the desert, but if someone had helped her daughters instead of walking past them, that meant something important. She placed her hand over her heart again, thinking of the stranger who might have saved her girls from fear and danger. With renewed energy, she walked toward the west ridge. The ridge stretched long and wide, leading to the trading station where many peaceful people met. She moved quickly but carefully, watching the ground for signs that her daughters had ridden through. Sometimes she saw the round impression of a horse's hoof. Sometimes she spotted a small bead lying on the ground, one she recognized from her older daughter's bracelet. The bead must have fallen during the ride. Nalan picked it up slowly and closed her fingers around it. She whispered a soft thank you to the earth for guiding her. As she walked, she remembered the moment her daughters were born, small, warm, and full of life. She remembered holding them close, promising to protect them always. That promise lived inside her now, stronger than any fear. She reminded herself that children had strong spirits. They were brave even when they didn't feel brave. And if someone kind was with them, they would not feel alone. The sun began to lower toward the afternoon sky. Nalan reached a hill overlooking the trading station. It was a small place made of simple wooden buildings, but it was always full of friendly faces. People came there to rest, trade goods, and share stories. Smoke rose gently from a cooking fire behind the main building. The sight brought a small comfort to Nalan. A place where people gathered meant a place where news traveled. She stepped closer, her heart beating faster now. She searched every corner with her eyes, hoping to see her daughter's familiar hair and bright eyes. She saw people leading horses, carrying baskets, and talking softly in small groups, but she did not see the man the travelers had described, not yet. As she walked toward the main building, a group of children ran past her, laughing and playing with a simple wooden toy. The sound made her heart ache gently, reminding her again of her missing daughters. She closed her eyes for a moment and breathed deeply. She would not give up. She could not. Nalan approached the trader, a man who had known her village for years. He recognized her at once and greeted her warmly. "Nalan," he said, "you seem troubled." She explained her situation, her voice steady but full of emotion. The trader listened carefully and nodded. "A man did come here with 2 girls," he said. "They were calm, and he cared for them gently. He said he found them near a canyon after the storm." Nalan's breath caught in her throat. That was her daughters, she was sure of it. "Where are they now?" she asked. The trader pointed to a sheltered area near the side of the building. "They are resting," and the man stepped away for a moment to prepare for travel. Nalan walked quickly but quietly. her steps growing lighter with every breath. She rounded the corner of the building and saw two small figures sitting on a blanket, drinking cool water from a clay cup, her daughters. Her heart filled with relief so strong it felt like a warm wave washing over her. She called their names softly, not wanting to scare them. The girls looked up at the sound, their eyes widened, and in the next heartbeat, they ran to her with open arms. Nalin knelt and wrapped them both in her embrace, holding them tightly yet tenderly. Their familiar warmth, their small hands clutching her dress, their soft voices, everything filled her with gratitude. She whispered gentle words to them, telling them how brave they were and how happy she was to find them. She held them close for a long moment before looking up. She wondered about the man who had helped them. She wanted to thank him with all her heart. She didn't know him yet. But soon, she would. She had found her daughters, and now she felt ready to meet the kind stranger who had kept them safe. When Caleb returned to the trading station, carrying a small bundle of supplies and clean water for the girls, he did not expect anything unusual to happen. He stepped around the corner of the building and saw the children sitting on a blanket exactly where he had left them. But this time, something had changed. A young woman was kneeling beside them, holding them close in a warm embrace. Her long dark hair fell gently across her shoulders, and her face showed a mixture of deep relief and quiet tears. The girls were clinging to her just as tightly, laughing softly, touching her cheeks, and telling her excitedly what had happened. Caleb paused in his steps without even thinking. He knew right away that this was their mother. For a moment, he simply stood there, giving them space, not wanting to interrupt something so precious. A reunion between a mother and her children was something he respected more than any law or rule of the land. It was a moment of pure connection, something the desert itself seemed to pause and observe. The older daughter was the first to notice him. She pointed toward Caleb and said something softly to her mother. The woman lifted her eyes, and they met Caleb's gaze for the first time. Her expression changed. The relief still remained in her face, but now a new feeling settled, in curiosity, uncertainty, maybe even a little hesitation. She rose slowly, keeping one hand on her daughter's shoulders. Caleb cleared his throat gently, making sure his voice sounded calm and respectful. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "your daughters are safe. I found them after the storm. They were calling for help, so I brought them here." The woman took a small step forward. Her posture remained steady, but her eyes studied him carefully, as if trying to understand everything about him in a single glance. She spoke her name softly, almost like a breeze. "Nalin." Caleb nodded politely. "I'm Caleb Turner." The girls tugged their mother's hands and began speaking quickly, mixing English with the Apache words Caleb had heard earlier. They pointed at him again, explaining how he had spoken kindly to them and helped them onto his horse. Nalin listened with deep attention, her face softening as each word seemed to ease her worry. Finally, she looked at Caleb again. "Thank you," she said, and her words carried a depth that touched him more than he expected. "My daughters say you cared for them kindly. I am grateful." Caleb lifted a hand in a simple gesture. They were scared and alone. Anyone would have helped, but Nalin shook her head just a little, her eyes still steady on his. Not everyone listens to children's cries. Not everyone stops for strangers. Her voice was gentle, but the meaning behind it was clear. She understood that kindness was a choice, and Caleb had made that choice when he didn't have to. Caleb felt a warm heaviness settle in his chest, not uncomfortable, just meaningful. He realized he felt a deep respect for this woman who stood so strong even after hours of worry. The trader stepped outside at that moment, smiling at the reunion. "Good to see you all together," he said. "Caleb here told us the children were safe. He's always been a helpful sort." Nalin turned to him politely, and then back to Caleb. "You have my thanks," she repeated softly. Caleb didn't know what else to say. He wasn't used to being thanked so sincerely. He simply nodded and set the supplies down on a nearby crate. "I brought water and some food," he said. "The girls didn't eat much earlier. They might be hungry now." Nalin glanced at the bundle, then at Caleb. Her eyes softened even more. "That is very thoughtful," she answered. The girls sat back on the blanket, nibbling at the fruit Caleb had brought. Nalin encouraged them to eat slowly, brushing their hair gently with her fingers. Caleb watched the scene quietly. He kept his distance, not wanting to intrude, but a part of him felt drawn to stay near. After a few moments of quiet, Nalin walked toward him. She did not stand too close, but near enough that her voice could stay low and private. "I want to understand what happened," she said. "Where did you find them?" Caleb described everything carefully: the canyon, the hollow where the girls had been waiting, the signs of the storm, and how he had followed the sound of their cries. He explained how he had tried to comfort them and how he brought them safely through the rough terrain. He spoke simply, without trying to make himself seem heroic. Nalin listened with serious attention, not missing a word. She nodded from time to time, her eyes gentle and thoughtful. When Caleb finished, she exhaled slowly, as if she had been holding her breath through the whole story. "You cared for them as if they were your own," she said quietly. "I cannot repay such kindness, but I will not forget it." Her words settled into Caleb like warm sunlight. A quiet moment passed between them, peaceful, natural, without any pressure. The wind rustled lightly through the trading station, lifting the scent of warm earth and distant sagebrush. Then Nalin spoke again, her voice full of sincerity. "The path back to our lands is long, and the storm changed the usual trail. I plan to take my daughters home today, but I am not sure which path is safest. The land is different now." Caleb felt something shift inside him. He knew the land well. He knew the safer paths and the hidden dangers left behind after a storm. And he knew the journey would be easier for her with someone to guide them. "If you'd like," he said gently, "I can help you get there. I know the roads. The storm washed out some routes, but there's a way around the ridge that stays safe even after heavy rain." Nalin looked surprised. Not because the offer was strange, but because it was unexpected in its kindness. "You would travel with us?" she asked. "If you're comfortable with that," Caleb replied, "I won't intrude." He paused, choosing his words with care. "I just want to make sure you and the girls get home safely." Nalin looked toward her daughters. They were finishing their fruit and playfully counting the beads on each other's bracelets. Then she looked back at Caleb, her expression softening into something calm, trusting. "It is a generous offer," she said, "and I believe my daughters feel safe with you. That is important to me." Her acceptance felt gentle, yet full of meaning. Caleb gave a small nod. "We can leave whenever you're ready." Nalin gathered the girls and helped them finish packing the few items they had carried that day. Caleb prepared his horse, making sure the saddle was tight and the blankets secure. The girls came up to him while he worked, watching with bright eyes. One of them asked him a small question about the horse, and Caleb answered with a warm smile, happy to see their curiosity returning. Soon everything was ready. Before they began their journey, Nalin paused beside Caleb. Her voice was quiet but steady. "I am grateful for your help. My daughters are safe because of you." Caleb shook his head lightly. "I'm just glad I got to them in time." But Nalin looked at him with a depth that made his words feel lighter than the truth. "Even so," she said, "thank you." Together, they stepped away from the trading station, leaving behind the small cluster of buildings and moving toward the open land. The sky stretched wide above them, soft blue with traces of late afternoon warmth. Caleb walked beside his horse while the girls rode comfortably on its back. Nalin walked close to them, her eyes on the trail ahead, but often glancing at Caleb with quiet appreciation. Their journey had begun, and although none of them knew it yet, this path would change all of their lives in ways they had never imagined. The journey from the trading station toward Nalin's homeland began slowly, with warm afternoon light shining across the desert. Caleb walked beside his horse, making sure the girls were comfortable on its back. Nalin walked on the other side, keeping a gentle hand near her daughters in case they felt unsteady. The air was calm, and even though the land had changed after the storm, everything felt peaceful for the moment. The girls were still a little tired from their long mourning, but being with their mother made them feel safer. They whispered to each other, pointing now and then at interesting shapes in the rocks or small animals that appeared in the distance. Their quiet excitement brought a soft smile to Nalen's face. Caleb noticed that smile and felt something warm inside, but he kept his focus on the trail. The desert was beautiful, but after a storm, it could be unpredictable. He wanted the journey to be smooth for all of them. After about an hour, the group reached a gentle slope that led into a wide valley. The valley was dotted with small bushes and tall grass that moved lightly with the breeze. Caleb paused and looked around carefully. "There's a sheltered spot up ahead," he said, pointing toward a cluster of rocks. "We can rest there for a little while. The girls might enjoy stretching their legs." Nalen nodded. "That sounds good." When they reached the spot, Caleb helped the girls off the horse, and they ran happily toward a soft patch of grass. Nalen watched with a relaxed smile, while Caleb unpacked some water and a piece of dried fruit for everyone to share. The girls sat down on the blanket Caleb spread out, and Nalen soon joined them. Caleb sat a short distance away, letting them enjoy their time without feeling crowded. The air smelled clean after the storm, and a soft wind carried the scent of sagebrush. One of the girls picked up a small stone that sparkled in the light and brought it to Caleb. "Look," she said shyly. Caleb smiled warmly. "That's a good one. It looks like it caught the sun." The girl beamed proudly and returned to show it to her mother. Nalen gave Caleb a grateful glance. It touched her heart to see how gently he spoke to the children, always patient and respectful. As they rested, Nalen spoke softly to him. "My daughters are usually quiet with strangers, but they seem comfortable with you." Caleb looked down modestly. "I'm glad they feel safe. They were very brave when I found them." Nalen brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. "They told me how you talked to them during the ride, how you made them feel less afraid. That means a lot to me." Her voice was gentle, but full of meaning. Caleb nodded. "Children deserve kindness. Fear is heavy for them." Their eyes met for a brief moment, warm and calm, like a quiet understanding flowing between them. Then Nalen turned her gaze toward the horizon. After another short rest, they continued walking. The sun began to lower behind the hills, turning the sky more golden. The shadows of the rocks stretched long across the ground. Caleb decided they should find a place to stop for the evening, before the light faded. He knew the desert was peaceful, but night could make traveling harder. Not dangerous, just uncertain. "There's a small hollow near the ridge," he said. "It's soft ground and well sheltered. Good for resting." Nalen agreed. The girls were starting to yawn, their earlier excitement now giving way to tiredness. Caleb lifted them gently onto the horse again, and they rode quietly while he and Nalen walked beside them. When they reached the hollow, it was exactly as Caleb remembered, calm, shaded, with soft sand that made good ground for sleeping. He took care to spread his blanket for the children and helped them settle down. They curled up close to each other while Nalen arranged their small belongings and made sure they were warm. As the girls rested, Caleb gathered a few dry branches scattered nearby, not for a fire, since the night air was warm, but to make a small windbreak in case a cool breeze came later. He worked quietly, not wanting to disturb the peaceful moment. Nalen watched him for a moment before walking over. "You do not have to do all that," she said gently. Caleb gave a small smile. "I don't mind. It's good to make sure everyone is comfortable." Nalen looked at him with soft appreciation. "You are very thoughtful. Most men from the settlements do not show such care." Caleb shrugged lightly. "Maybe they just don't know how important small things can be." Nalen tilted her head slightly. "And you do?" Caleb hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "I've lived alone for many years. That teaches you to notice things others might miss." There was a silence between them, comfortable and easy. The desert air carried a faint hum as the day slowly melted into evening. When the girls fell asleep, curled closely under Nalen's shawl, Caleb sat down on a smooth rock a few steps away to give the family space. Nalen walked over and sat beside him, keeping a respectful distance. "Caleb," she said softly, "I wish to understand something." "Of course. When you found my daughters, how did you know to trust them?" Many people would not stop in the middle of a canyon after a storm. Caleb thought for a moment, then answered honestly. When I heard them crying, I didn't think about danger or difficulty. I only heard two small voices asking for help, and I couldn't ignore that. Nalin listened carefully, her eyes thoughtful. Caleb felt a warmth rise in his chest at her words. He glanced at her briefly and then looked toward the sleeping girls. "It means a lot that you trust me," he said quietly. "I do," Nalin replied gently. "You guided us today with respect and patience, and my daughters feel safe around you. That tells me more than any words could." A soft breeze passed between them, carrying the quiet rhythm of the desert evening. They talked a little more about the land, the storms, the changes in the seasons. Their conversation felt easy, natural. Like two people who had known each other longer than a single day. The stars appeared slowly overhead, shining like small lamps across the darkening sky. The desert always held a special beauty at night, peaceful and wide, as if the world had expanded. When the night grew deeper, Caleb stood. "I'll sleep near the edge of the hollow," he said. "If you or the girls need anything, I'll be close." Nalin rose as well, her face illuminated by the soft starlight. "Thank you," she said, "for everything today." Caleb nodded, then settled on his blanket a short distance away, giving the family privacy but staying close enough to help if needed. Before lying down, he looked once more toward Nalin. She was watching her daughters sleep, her face peaceful and full of love. Caleb felt something gentle stir in his chest, something he didn't yet understand, but he welcomed it quietly. He lay back, hands behind his head, staring at the wide sky above. The stars twinkled like distant fires, and the desert air felt calm and kind. As he closed his eyes, one thought lingered in his mind. This journey was changing something inside him, something he hadn't expected, something warm and hopeful. And tomorrow would bring them all closer to whatever awaited beyond the hills. The next morning arrived gently, with soft golden light spreading slowly across the desert floor. Birds began calling from distant bushes, and the air felt cool and fresh. Caleb woke to the sound of quiet whispers. When he opened his eyes, he saw Nalin sitting with her daughters, helping them smooth their hair with her fingers. The girls were smiling sleepily, still waking up from a comfortable night's rest. Caleb sat up and offered them a warm, friendly smile. "Good morning," he said softly so he wouldn't startle them. Nalin returned the smile, her eyes full of calm gratitude. "Good morning, Caleb." The simple exchange felt natural, as if they had been traveling together for much longer than just one day. Caleb stood and stretched his arms, then prepared his horse for the next part of the journey. Nalin made sure the girls had a little water and helped them pack their small things. When everything was ready, they continued their walk through the valley. The land was brighter today, still holding signs of the storm, but full of quiet life. Flowers pushed through the damp earth, and small animals peeked from the shadows of rocks. The girls, now fully rested, were curious about everything around them. They pointed at birds flying across the sky and whispered to each other about the shapes of the clouds. Caleb listened to their soft voices and felt a peaceful happiness rise inside him. Seeing them safe and full of wonder gave him a deep sense of purpose. As they moved toward Nalin's homeland, the path grew more familiar to her. She recognized certain hills, certain stones, and even certain trees that stood like quiet guardians of the land. She walked with growing confidence, though she still appreciated Caleb's guidance on the safest routes. Around midday, they reached a tall ridge with smooth stones worn by wind and time. From the top, they could see a wide stretch of land with small homes, drying racks, and cooking areas spread gently through the valley. Smoke rose from a few distant fires, signaling morning meals being prepared. Nalin stopped and placed her hand over her heart. "This is home," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. Her daughters squealed softly and clapped their hands. They recognized the familiar shapes and sounds, and happiness lit their faces. Caleb stood a step behind them, taking it all in. The village looked peaceful, warm, and lively. He felt a sense of calm wash over him, Nalin had brought him to the edge of a world that held meaning and memory for her. She turned to Caleb, her smile soft but full. "Thank you," she said. "We are almost there." Caleb nodded gently. "I'm glad we made it safely." They traveled the last part of the trail slowly, giving Nalin time to absorb the familiar surroundings. As they approached the village, people noticed them. A few stepped forward, first in curiosity, then in surprise. When Nalin's name was spoken among them, faces lit with relief. A small group of villagers hurried toward her. They greeted her warmly, welcoming her daughters with open arms. The children immediately hugged familiar relatives, and soft laughter rose among the group. Nalin's mother, an older woman with wise eyes, reached out and embraced her daughter tightly. "We were worried," she said softly. "But you are safe. And the girls are safe." Tears glimmered in Nalin's eyes as she returned the embrace. The girls hugged their grandmother, smiling and talking in excited voices. For a few moments, Caleb hung back, giving the family space to reunite. He watched the peaceful scene with a quiet heart. He felt glad, truly glad, that he had been able to bring them home. Nalin finally stepped away from her family and approached him again. Her expression was full of emotion, but not sadness, something gentler, something bright. "My family wants to thank you," she said softly. "They want you to know you are welcome here." Caleb bowed his head politely. "I'm grateful for the welcome. I'm just glad the girls are back with you." Nalin looked at him with deep appreciation. "You have done more than you know," she said. "You brought peace to my heart during a time of fear. I will always remember that." Her words touched Caleb deeply. He felt something warm and uplifting rise inside him, something he could not easily name. He glanced at the children, now playing under the shade of a large tree, safe and joyful. After a moment, Nalin took a gentle step closer. "Caleb," she said quietly, "I want you to stay for a little while. Rest from your journey. Let my family thank you properly." Caleb hesitated. He was used to moving from place to place, helping where he could and keeping to himself, but the way Nalin spoke, with sincerity and kindness, made him feel something he hadn't felt in a long time: belonging. "If you're sure," he said softly. Nalin smiled, a warm, honest smile. "I am sure." She guided him toward the center of the village, where people greeted him with friendly nods and welcoming gestures. They offered him food and water, and they thanked him again and again for bringing back the children safely. Caleb accepted their kindness humbly, feeling almost overwhelmed by their warmth. Throughout the afternoon, the girls stayed close to him, showing him little treasures from their home: painted stones, woven mats, beadwork. Caleb admired each one with genuine interest, making the children giggle with pride. Nalin watched from a distance at times, her heart full. She saw how her daughters trusted Caleb completely, how they leaned close to him, how they smiled in a way that showed pure comfort. It was a rare thing, she thought, to find someone who touched children's hearts so gently. As the sun moved lower in the sky, she approached Caleb with 2 cups of cool water. He thanked her quietly, and they sat together beneath a large tree, where the view of the village spread out before them. The air grew softer as the late afternoon warmth settled around them. "It is peaceful here," Caleb said, looking across the land. Nalin nodded. "Yes, my people have lived here for many generations. There is a calmness in this place. It holds many memories." Caleb glanced at her. "You must be glad to be home." "I am," she said. "But I also feel something else." Caleb waited patiently, not wanting to interrupt the gentle flow of her thoughts. Nalin continued, her voice soft and honest. "When I was searching for my daughters, fear filled me. But meeting you brought hope. You cared for them with no expectation. You helped us without hesitation." She paused, looking at him with sincere eyes. "And somewhere along the way, my heart found peace in your presence." Caleb felt something shift inside him, something warm, surprising, and deeply gentle. He didn't speak right away. He wanted to choose his words carefully. "I felt something too," he admitted quietly. "Walking with you, talking with you, seeing the way you care for your children. All of it mattered to me. The breeze moved softly through the leaves above them. Nolan's voice grew even quieter. My heart. I think it has grown close to you. Caleb looked into her eyes and saw honesty, kindness, and a warmth he had not expected to find on this journey. He felt his own heart respond with a steady, calm certainty. I'm honored, he said gently. And I feel close to you too. A soft smile touched Nolan's face, a smile full of promise and hope. They sat quietly for a long moment, sharing a peaceful silence that needed no explanation. The land around them glowed with the colors of sunset, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. When the first stars began to appear, Nalin stood and extended her hand, an invitation filled with trust. Caleb took it with quiet respect, feeling something new and beautiful unfolding between them. In that moment, he understood something clearly. The journey had brought him more than a task completed. It had brought him a place where he felt welcomed. It had brought him a family he cared for deeply. And most of all, it had brought him a connection he had never expected. A connection that felt like the beginning of something lasting.